be careful who you trust. You have not been an entrepreneur until you have had a business partner who you trust betray you. That's also something that VCs look for. No joke. Have you ever been screwed over by a business partner? If this is not your first rodeo, what did you learn?
Hi everyone. Let me introduce Rob Turley, the RevOps Hitman. He's on board of 3 AI companies, and he's also a founder of a revenue operations firm called Hitman Consulting Company. So please, Rob, introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. My name's Rob Turley, aka the RevOps Hitman. Did not choose the name. It was given to me by a magazine, and then it stuck. I actually resented it at first, but it stuck so well that, okay, it's free marketing, and I had to learn to love it. You know what I mean? So you can find me playing around in the AI space. You'll find me playing around in the revenue operations space. So I'm a RevOps expert, which is short for revenue operations, if anybody does not know. I'm a go-to-market expert, a product market fit expert, and then I come into play in a lot of different areas within a company to de-silo a business, have them become data-driven, implement the right processes, the right technologies to ensure that there is that it's operationalized and that there is a high growth and highly scalable architecture of the business moving forward.
Yeah, makes sense. And what was the magazine that mentioned you and gave the nickname?
Oh, it's GTM Mag, Go-to-Market Magazine.
Interesting. Yeah. So what's your story? How did you become a RevOps expert? As far as I understand, you started with design. So can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, my background is all over the place, I'll tell you that much. So if you want to go way back, I started my first company when I was about 12. It was landscaping, and I had other people doing landscaping for me, so I had a team. And then after that point, I started cleaning out people's attics for free. Why did I do that? Because they were hoarders. And anything that they wanted to keep, they had to write on a list. Then they go on like a quick weekend vacation because they literally cannot part with their things. They literally have a disease. They're hoarders. So I say, okay, I'll get rid of all of it. So you get a 30-yard dumpster. You'd be throwing all this stuff away. And then if there's anything that I wanted to keep, I have every right to take it because it would get thrown out anyway. Then I would go to flea markets and start selling those things, or go to collectible shops, start selling those things. And I found some really, really fine picks along the way. What got into storage locker auctions as well from that point, before it was cool, before the show came out, right? Doing that type of stuff. Then got into plumbing, got into drywalling, and then from there got into graphic design, and then went to school for it. So there's specialized in user experience, user interface. I then worked in advertising and communications, then into custom software development. And then in custom software development, I started working on an AI project that was company-wide. We built something really awesome. It got acquired by a large company that I cannot disclose the name of to this day due to NDA. We pretty much built the Gong before Gong existed, like years before. Then I said, you know what, I could do this better myself. So I started an AI company myself, ran that for about 4.5 years. It was pretty successful. And now I have a consulting agency because people wanted me to start consulting. And I participate on the board with several AI companies currently. And I help drive growth for businesses that I'm with. And that's probably why I do what I do, is that I love making people's dreams come true and helping them really build something incredible that will make some sort of positive impact in either the marketplace or the world that's around us.
Yeah, you have been all over the place, and it's super cool that you have all of that exposure and like practical knowledge in everything. So you mentioned software development. Did you actually write the code, or what did you do there?
So for the front end, yes. For the back end, no. I learned Python, but I'm not a fan. I don't want to do back end. I don't want to do back end coding. I don't get joy out of it. It's miserable. I don't like coding. It doesn't make me happy. So why would I do it? I'm more on the operational side of things. But while I was working in AI, we were so ahead of our time that businesses were not ready to work with AI. So they didn't have the data or the processes, or the protocols to back it all up. So I'd have to come in, look at their marketing, their sales, their customer success, their data processes and data architecture, all that stuff, and then restructure the company so that it did become AI ready. So I was kind of forced into the RevOps role because when you're building AI for marketing and sales and they can't use it, in order for them to use the product, you had to completely just restructure their company to allow that type of an innovation. So I kind of fell into it in its own respect, but that's where I really found joy.
Yeah, yeah, that's super cool. So let's take a step back and can you just explain um, what RevOps is? Because honestly, I had to Google this term and learn a little bit about it before the
Most of the
podcast.
terminologies out there are actually incorrect too.
Okay,
One of the
can you explain?
closest trusted sources around RevOps, at their definition was the closest. It was HubSpot actually, which is kind of funny because HubSpot doesn't know which way is up with RevOps. But anyway, my definition is that revenue operations is the unification of a business surrounding the customer and revenue generating activity, meaning to de-silo the company. Since we call them divisions, right? You have sales division, marketing division, advertising division. It's breaking down those divided or the dividers between them so they become a unified, data driven, customer centric force working together. So it's pretty much getting the whole company to work together around the customer, around revenue generating activity. So instead of trying to do cost reduction and all that stuff, why not optimize and as a result reduce cost, though also increase the customer service level instead of sacrificing it?
Hmm. Can you give any specific example of the process of going from like traditional divisions to this RevOps methodology or whatever you call it, right? Is it a
In
methodology?
respect to what? Because there are a lot of different case scenarios that you could bring up there. It would just depend on where the problem is or what the team is that you're working with.
Maybe just any kind of example, because in general it makes sense, but it's hard to really understand what's going on unless you have a very specific example. So if you can share it,
Do you want to
that
go
would
down
be.
more of a technical example or more of like a revenue team example? Like how would you like to do, like, so how do we enable someone to make more money, or how do we enable someone to protect their business from decline and then bring them back around and understand what's actually going on and how everything, all the moving parts impact? So do you want more of like an architectural and technical example, or do you want more of like a how do we grow our company example?
Let's do the second one. How do we grow the company?
Okay, for sure. So a lot of companies, they're doing their spray and pray outreach approaches, right? They don't really speak the language of the customer either. They're speaking the founder's language, right? Uh, I like to do an exercise with companies where give me the top 10 reasons people buy from you. Ask the founders, right? They're going to give you the top 10 reasons. Then you take the top 10 reasons why people actually did buy from them by talking to the customer or looking at testimonials. Guess how many of those, out of those 10, those sets of 10, of this is what the founder says or the company says, and this is what the customer says, how many out of each of these sets of 10 actually align, if you were to guess?
Man, I'd say it depends on the size of the company because, like, if the company is super, super large, maybe the number is going to be less, smaller than that. But I'd say maybe 3 out of 10.
You actually have that inverted.
Okay, interesting. Tell me about it.
Yes, but the average is 2 out of 10. So 20% of why you think they buy from you is actually why they buy from you. 80% of the time, you're dead wrong. So it's about defining that, understanding it, doing a go to market targeting and psycholinguistic development exercise, going through that process to understand, okay, this is who we should be doing business with. Here are our targets, breaking it down not only from industry, but from company level and then to the individual level. A CEO is a CEO is a CEO. I don't care what industry you work in. You're going to approach a CEO and speak to them about things. They're going to have very similar struggles in their life, pain points, right? Roadblocks. They're dealing with the same type of stuff no matter which industry you're working in. Then you're looking at an industry itself. This industry has certain struggles, and that's that. Then you look at the size of the company. How big is the company? Operationally, they're going to have certain struggles. If a company between 10 to 25 versus a company of 100 to 250, the operational issues that they're dealing with are like night and day, even being in the same industry. So it's about breaking that all down to understand all the moving parts and then being able to mix and match them together so you can create what I call the RevOps Hitman targeting method, or a 4x8x16 market segmentation methodology. By being able to segment the market properly and really dial it in so that you can create relevant messaging in a scalable way and connect with people, driving that into an outreach protocol, like an outreach strategy using psycholinguistics around the approach of language. For example, let's take a commoditized industry, because those are the hardest to sell into as the example. So let's say a CPA firm that's been around for like 19 years. I was working with them, and I don't just work with them. Like, I work with AI, I work with software providers, I work with IT services companies, you name it. I'm pretty much industry agnostic, but this is one of the most commoditized industries is accounting, right? So it took them, they were getting about, just through their LinkedIn outreach alone, before doing my methodology, they were getting about 2 qualified meetings per month. After they worked with me, so month 1, it was auditing. Month 2, it was structuring all of the process architecture, implementing, and then migrating. Then month 3 was coaching and learning on how to apply these processes and how the team is going to interact. Month 4 was the deployment of all these new processes. In that month 4, and by the way, it was during dead season for accounting, they were able to increase their qualified meetings set per month just on LinkedIn alone from 2 to 34. Month 1 during dead season. So it was record pipeline production compared to any other month since they started their company.
So what's the secret?
The secret is they didn't know how to target properly, how to operationalize properly. They didn't understand how their sales process architecture worked, what the onboarding and handoff should look like, all the moving parts of what a customer journey is, a buyer's journey to a customer, to the handoff and onboarding to the customer's journey should look like, and then of course upsells from that point. So it's just restructuring that whole process and everything that is ancillary to it, how they use their data, how they collect the data, what data they should be focused on, and then building these process architecture programs out where you have all of the feedback loops tied up if there's any gaps within the process, so gap analysis to understand that. So creating a very fine-tuned, well-oiled machine. And of course, the language and relationship building capabilities, and not just pitching, not pitch dumping, but rather building connections and networking with other people to try to help solve problems and being relatable rather than just trying to dump a product in someone's head.
So all of that you're describing is part of RevOps, as far as I understand.
Correct. RevOps and go-to-market, but RevOps is a large part of go-to-market.
Makes sense. So what you do basically is, let's take the CPA company example. You go to them, you speak with them, you identify that their process of going to market, understanding their client, selling, all of that is basically
and their systems
inefficient.
and their processes and their tech stack, all of that stuff. Yes.
And you help them build it from ground up, a new system that would bring a steady flow of customers, upsells, and all of that.
Correct. And it's sometimes from the ground up, some of their processes or systems were fine, but they needed to be optimized or restructured. So I take what's existing and then optimize it, or there needs to be net new that's brought in, or even some things removed from the process because they're useless.
And you mentioned that you're basically industry agnostic when it comes to companies that you help.
I've worked with chiropractors. I've worked with accountants. I've worked with AI companies, like advanced technology companies. I've worked with custom software dev companies, marketing agencies, lead gen agencies, LinkedIn automation software providers, you name it. All the way to plumbers and what else? Other consultants, for God's sakes, like you name it.
Oh, plumbers, like individuals or like companies?
Companies.
So what's the minimum like company size that you usually work with?
So I limit the number of like early stage startups or even solopreneurs that I work with. I do it. It's more like kind of like a charity because I charge next to nothing for it, but I only take on 2 of them at a time. I just like helping because I've been there. You know what I mean? But otherwise, I generally will focus on companies between, let's say, 25 to 200 in size, because that's when the most change is happening. There's not everything's wrapped in red tape yet, and there's the most opportunity to really grow. But I also do work with companies like between 1 to 10 and 10 to 25. I just limit the number of those companies because I can't charge my full rate for those guys, but I do love to help. So I try to limit that.
Yeah, makes sense. So this is more for the companies that already have established some kind of a stable business process, but it needs to be improved or completely redone
It's time to reoperationalize. They need to become scalable for that hockey stick growth.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, makes sense. Anything else you want to share about how you are doing business with your clients?
Well, not about how, but it's more like there's a certain mindset that people need to have. If someone doesn't want to grow or someone doesn't want to change, there's nothing that you can do to enable them to want to or to do it. So change management is a very large part of what the game that I play. If you're not willing to make changes, then you're a waste of my time and I'm a waste of your money. So it's about whether people are ready for it, if they're open to it, and if they're coachable, if they can listen, if they're open to change. If they don't check those boxes, then I just say you're disqualified.
So your client has to be proactively willing to change.
Yes. Or if they never thought about it, they have to be open to doing so after the first conversation.
Cool, makes sense. Um, One thing I read in your LinkedIn profile is something that the design, your background there, it can teach you something about RevOps or companies or optimization. Can you share something about that?
What do you mean? Could you rephrase?
Yeah, so basically you have some learnings from what you learned about design, and you can apply that to what you're doing right now or to how you have
Yes.
to build companies.
I'll tell you what, I know it sounds very disconnected with the design thing, but I'll tell you what, it was some of the best knowledge I've ever acquired. Why? It's because you understand, especially with UX UI, you understand how people interact with things, how people flow through things, how people convert, how people move through a story, move through an experience. And those architectural processes and those ideologies, that psychology flows right into the buyer's journey, the seller's journey, all of those different pieces. A lot of those same laws uh, flow through almost perfectly and almost better than a lot of the different sales resources are out there around like a buyer's journey. There are many principles that come into play that are unknown to the sales and marketing world that apply, and not only apply but apply far more effectively.
Do you teach that anyway, anywhere?
I want to. I haven't started yet, but I do want to.
Yeah, that's interesting because it reminds me a little bit about what Steve Jobs said about his, I think, what was the course that he took in his college that basically helped him with design for the Apple products, something that has to do with design, right?
Yeah, he talked a lot about how the design of the product and how the user experience flows through into the ability to sell it, because a buyer's journey or a buyer's experience needs to be experiential. That's why they call it the buyer's journey, not the seller's journey, because the buyer needs to be in control. Your job as a seller is to guide the buyer through the experience to solve a problem, not to shove features and prices and discounts down their throat. People tend to forget what a CEO's job really is. Their job, not only to drive the mission, vision, and purpose, which is what everybody thinks it is, their job is to be the last line of defense with problem solving. If someone on the base level of the company, the lowest level, can't solve a problem, they bring it up to their manager. If the manager can't solve it, they bring it up to the director. If the director can't solve it, brings it up to the VP. VP can't solve it, they bring it up to the C-suite that they directly report to. If that C-suite can't solve it, then it goes directly to the CEO. If the CEO doesn't have a way to solve it, they have to outsource that problem solve. Therefore, you're there to solve a problem that no one in that company can solve. And people need to wrap their head around that. That's why when you're a salesperson, you need to have competence, confidence, and executive presence. That layered in with product knowledge, not in the sense of talking about the product, but in the sense of problem solving. So, industry knowledge and the industry you're targeting. That is what makes up an effective salesperson. It's a consultative process.
I like it. I like this whole approach about not talking about the features of the product, but talking about the user experience, their journey, their problems first.
Yeah, no one cares what it does. No one cares how it's made. All they care about is, will this help me solve this problem that my team currently cannot handle?
Interesting. So your product is basically that solution to the problem that nobody can solve in the company.
Yes, I'm also known as an impossible problem solver.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, that's a very interesting way to look at it. I never thought about it this way. So
Well, that means I'm doing my job properly, because my job, more times than not, is to get people to change the perspective.
good. Yeah, super cool. Thanks for sharing that. Let's take a step back, and if you can, since you're a serial entrepreneur, you probably had your ups and downs, just like we all do.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
haven't we all? Yeah.
so, what are your top lessons that you can share, or mistakes that you've made that shape who you are and that taught you valuable lessons?
If you know that a customer is going to be a liability, and I mean they're going to be difficult to work with, you're better off just telling them they're not a good fit, because they will cost you more than what they're ever going to pay you. And that cost is not always money. It could be emotional, it could be stress based, or it could be labor based, where there's just too much work behind it. They need too much attention. It can end up tanking your company. One bad customer can cost you 3 good customers, because you can't give the attention to the customers that actually need your attention, who are worth doing business with. Another one is, be careful who you trust. You have not been an entrepreneur until you have had a business partner who you trust betray you. That's also something that VCs look for. No joke. Have you ever been screwed over by a business partner? If this is not your first rodeo, what did you learn? So keep that in mind, is that the people who you trust most are not always to be trusted. So be very careful and know when to let go. I know that sounds very negative, and I know that any new business owner or founder is going to say, no, I trust him with my life. Wait till you start making money and then talk to me. Right? It
Yeah.
can go sideways at any point. One other thing, too, is do not think that you have it figured out. If things are going right, you don't learn from winning. And then you also don't lose unless you give up, which means you fail. There is no failure. There's winning, and then there's learning. You don't learn when you're winning. You just win. But when you fail, you're not failing, you're learning, unless you give up. So keep that in mind, is that there is a lot more value in screwing up than there is in doing something right, because you have not learned a single lesson from doing something properly.
Yeah, that's totally resonates with me. And I'm curious, you said don't be afraid to let go. What do you mean exactly by letting go?
In the respect of the business partner, sometimes you need to walk away, or you need to get rid of them, or you need to split the company. It happens. But then also, the fear of letting go is, I call it founder's disease. Founder's disease has many symptoms, but let's go after this one. Is that the fear of letting go is delegation. You're afraid to let your team make mistakes. You're afraid to allow someone to do a job that you think that you could do better. You will never grow, truly grow, or be able to scale your company if you can't let go of control. And with your employees, if they fail, that's okay. They just need to learn from it. You need to ensure that they are learning from it and lead them to success. They're not always going to do the right thing at the right time. You may even lose a customer over it. That's okay. But if you just try to take over to prevent them from failing, they're not going to learn a damn thing. And your team is never going to be scalable, because they're always going to rely on you to solve the problem in the end, or to help them whenever they need it. You cannot scale a company while trying to control every aspect of it. So you need to let go. And that is something that early stage or first time, even second or third time founders have the most trouble doing.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. I haven't been in that position yet, but
You're
I've
lucky. No, so some personalities, that means someone like yourself, Danny, some personalities are able to just do that because yours is built that way. But when you have like a commander personality like I do, it's difficult. Like that was a very hard learned lesson for me. I learned how to do it, but it took years of just grinding away at the problem to understand what's going on, and a lot of paradigm shifts to handle it. And most people are in my position, whether you're a commander personality or other personalities. You're lucky. That just consider yourself lucky because there's not a lot of people like you who could just let go like that.
No, I actually meant that my company isn't that big yet, and I'll probably have to figure out this problem. But some
Oh,
people
figure
I've
it out
talked to.
before you start to grow because you need to plan it out before the growth starts. You need to trust me on this because
Mhm.
if you need to do it when it becomes necessary to do it, it's almost too late and it's going to be way more difficult. Try to figure it out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, great advice. Um, and you also mentioned trust issues and uh, problems with your business partners, whatever. So, do you think that some of that might be prevented by paperwork and like legal documents, contracts?
No,
Because
no, no.
sometimes,
That's not preventable. It's just protection. That's all it is.
but this protection can help you mitigate the risk, right?
You will mitigate the risk. So prevention means that it can never happen. Mitigation of risk means that you can dampen the blow. Yes, you can mitigate the risk to dampen the blow, but you cannot prevent it.
Mm, yeah, yeah, good point. So before we end the episode, do you want to share something with the audience? It can be anything. It can be some learning. It can be something about your company. It can be anything you want.
Well, I don't know your audience as well as you do. So, based on your audience, what do you think would be most valuable to them after having a conversation with me?
Oh, maybe another final advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, first time founder.
To an aspiring entrepreneur. Okay, so are you talking about people who are looking to become one?
Either that or in the process of building their first startup or company.
Okay, it is not for the faint of heart. That's number one. Number two, do not give up even when it looks as dark as possible. I mean, I almost had to live in my car with my first entrepreneurial bout, right? You're going to go broke. Things are going to go wrong. You cannot let it take you down. Let the market tell you what they need just because it's your vision and it's your product and it's your baby. If the market doesn't see it as viable, you need to allow the market to change your approach. So allow the market to dictate what you build and how you innovate it. Beyond that is that if you are afraid of taking a risk, you do not belong in this business. And I'm not trying to like make people worry about it or second guess things. If you're second guess, actually, you know what? If you are second guessing things, you need to go all the way in. Let's say like a lot of people call themselves entrepreneurs and they have a full-time job and they're just working on something on the side. You have to take the leap. You're either all the way in or you're out. It's one of the few things that are truly binary. You're in or you're out. So make the decision, take the leap, and make it happen. If you want to build the company up enough while you're working full time so that you can finally pay yourself properly when you make the move over. Some people have done that. It's incredibly rare, but you have to take the leap. Just drop everything, do what you plan on doing, and do it at the greatest potential that you possibly can. Put your life and your soul into it. Otherwise, it is not going to work out to your favor.
I love it. Thanks for the advice and everything that you shared. The links to Rob's company and all of the other maybe LinkedIn accounts or anything else will be in the description. And
Yes. And if you want to contact me on LinkedIn, it's just linkedin.com/IN as in Nancy /the -RevOps -Hitman. And you can find me there.
perfect. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing your story and your advice today.
Of course, pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.